Over 2 hours of testifying in her own defense, Sakina Thompson told jurors she was jealous of the relationship her boyfriend had with the victim, Kayla Hodgson.
A little, I guess you could say, jealous and insecure.
This is a very important update for the community of Tamarack. In the news of a brutal murder that happened right behind me in this apartment complex, the murder of Kayla Hodgson. Now, she has been identified by friends and family as Kayla Hodgson on social media, so here's a picture of her. With new details released, 28-year-old Sakina Thompson, age 28, from Springfield, New York, was arrested by New York police officers. She's expected to be extradited to Broward County to face 1 count of first-degree murder. This young woman that was tragically taken away from friends and family on July the 13th, approximately around 3 p.m. Wednesday.
Kayla Hodgson was known as a young woman with a bright smile and a warm heart. She was born and raised in South Australia, where she grew up surrounded by family and friends who loved her deeply. People around her describe her as gentle, helpful, and full of dreams. She loved to laugh, and she often went out of her way to make others happy. Kayla enjoyed simple things like music, taking pictures, and spending time with her loved ones. She was not just another face in the crowd. She was someone whose kindness could light up any room. As she grew older, Kayla became more independent and hardworking. She had goals for her life and wanted to do something meaningful. She worked in hospitality and loved meeting people from different walks of life. Her friends said she always had positive energy and never liked conflict. She wanted peace, calm, and safety. But behind her calm and caring nature, Kayla had her own private struggles, things she rarely shared with others. In the months leading up to the tragedy, Kayla was active on social media. She often posted cheerful photos and updates that made her seem happy. But those close to her began to notice small changes in her tone. She sometimes wrote messages about stress, confusion, and trust. Her online activities slowly began to show signs that something wasn't right. It was as if her words were calling for help in a quiet way that few noticed at the time. Kayla's family had always been protective of her. They loved her deeply and were proud of the person she had become. They never imagined that her life would take a sudden and tragic turn. She was the type of daughter who checked in with her parents often and who made time for her siblings. Every plan she made was filled with hope for the future. But no one could have guessed that her story was heading toward a dark and unexpected ending. Kayla was in a relationship that many thought was normal at first. She seemed happy and comfortable with her partner, and their photos together showed smiles and shared moments. Yet behind those pictures, things were slowly falling apart. Arguments became frequent, trust started to break, and fear began to replace peace. What seemed like love began to turn into control and tension. Kayla tried to handle it quietly, hoping things would get better. Those around her noticed she had become more distant. She stopped attending certain social events and rarely talked about her relationship anymore. Her once bright spirit seemed dimmer, as if something was weighing her down. Still, she carried on, smiling for pictures and showing strength even when she felt weak inside. Her silence spoke louder than her words, but many did not realize how serious things had become until it was too late. By the end of 2024, the signs were there for anyone looking closely. Kayla's once lively energy had faded, and her world seemed smaller. The person who once dreamed so big was quietly fading from the light she brought into others' lives. No one knew that her days were being counted down by the same person who once claimed to love her. And when her story reached its final day, the world would finally see what had been hidden behind her gentle smile all along. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Where are you tuning in from? What are your thoughts as this story unfolds? Your voice matters. These are real people, real tragedies, and real lessons we can't ignore. Share this video with someone you care about. It can make all the difference. Welcome to Unseen Crime Dossiers, your home for spine-chilling cases, haunting before mysteries, and deep dives into the world of crime. From jaw-dropping real-life events to groundbreaking forensic discoveries, we're here to uncover the truth behind the most gripping investigations. Step inside, examine the evidence, and lose yourself in the shadows of true crime. At first, Kayla's relationship seemed like something out of a picture-perfect story. She met a man named James, who appeared kind and supportive. He often complimented her, bought her small gifts, and made her feel cared for. Everyone thought they were a strong couple, and Kayla believed she had found someone she could trust. But slowly, that image began to fade, replaced by something controlling and cold. James began showing signs of jealousy. He would ask Kayla where she went, who she spoke to, and why she didn't answer her phone quickly enough. What started as small arguments grew into daily tension. He wanted to know everything about her life, even her private thoughts. Kayla, who once valued her freedom and peace, started to feel trapped. Her cheerful posts online became fewer, replaced by short messages that hinted at her growing sadness. As weeks passed, friends noticed that Kayla was no longer the same. She smiled less, avoided long conversations, and often looked tired. When people asked how she was doing, she would say everything was fine, even though her eyes told another story. James's behavior was becoming more controlling. He would check her messages, question her about her whereabouts, and even get angry over small things. Kayla tried to calm him down, but nothing seemed to help. Soon, her world began to shrink. She spent less time with friends and more time alone. She stopped going out as often and focused on trying to keep the peace at home. Every argument left her feeling smaller, quieter, and more afraid. Those who knew her well could sense something was wrong, but Kayla didn't want anyone to worry. She believed she could fix things if she stayed calm and patient. James's temper became unpredictable. Some days he was gentle, and the next he would explode over minor disagreements. Kayla started walking on eggshells, afraid that anything she said might cause anger. Her love had turned into fear, but she didn't know how to leave. She hoped the man she first met would come back, but that version of James no longer existed. The relationship had turned into a storm she could not escape from. In private, Kayla began to keep to herself. She no longer spoke about her dreams or future. The brightness in her personality was fading fast. Even her family noticed that she didn't visit as much as she used to. Her phone calls became shorter and her laughter disappeared. The signs were clear, but the full truth remained hidden behind closed doors. By the end of the year, the tension between Kayla and James had reached a dangerous level. Every moment together carried a sense of fear and silence. What had once been a bond built on affection had turned into a struggle for control. The darkness growing inside their home was slowly taking over every part of Kayla's life, leading her closer to a fate she could not escape. As the new year approached, Kayla tried to hold her life together. She kept going to work, smiling when she had to, and pretending everything was normal. But those closest to her sensed something deeper was happening. Her messages became shorter, her voice quieter, and her laughter rare. She seemed distant, lost in thought, as if her mind was somewhere else entirely. Every move she made seemed careful, as though she was trying not to upset anyone. James's control over her had become stronger. He followed her online, watched who she interacted with, and grew angry whenever she talked to other people. Arguments became louder, and the peaceful moments between them became rare. Friends had stopped seeing her in person, and her phone rarely rang anymore. Kayla's world was getting smaller every day, as her energy and confidence slowly faded under the weight of fear and control. During the final weeks of her life, Kayla tried to reach out in small ways. She posted vague messages that hinted at sadness, writing about trust and change. Some people commented, offering kind words, but no one realized how serious things truly were. Her smile and photos hid the storm that was growing behind the scenes. What looked like peace was really pain, hidden in plain sight for everyone to see but few to understand. At home, things had reached a breaking point. Kayla was tired of the endless control and arguments. She wanted freedom and peace, but leaving was not simple. James didn't want her to go. His anger grew sharper each day, and he began to threaten her verbally. Kayla's one safe space had turned into a place of fear. She tried to stay calm, but every day brought new tension and uncertainty about what might happen next. In her final days, Kayla started to plan small ways to change her life. She talked about wanting to move, start fresh, and find herself again. She even mentioned to one friend that she was ready to let go of the stress. No one knew those words would soon carry a much heavier meaning. Her attempts to take back control of her life were quiet but real. Sadly, those steps came too late. On the last day she was seen alive, Kayla appeared tired but calm. She went about her usual routine, not showing any signs of what was about to happen. Neighbors later said they heard voices at night, raised, angry, and filled with tension. Then silence followed. When police arrived later, the scene they found was one no one could ever forget. By the time the news broke, both Kayla and James were gone. What started as a love story had ended in complete tragedy. The details left the community shocked, with many wondering how such darkness could grow unnoticed for so long. The story that had unfolded behind closed doors had finally reached its devastating end. When police arrived at the property, they were met with a quiet street that gave no hint of the horror inside. Neighbors stood outside, whispering as flashing lights filled the night. Officers entered the home and quickly realized something terrible had happened. 2 lives had ended in a violent scene that told a story of pain, anger, and final confrontation. The stillness inside the house marked the end of everything Kayla had once hoped for. The news spread fast across South Australia. Reports spoke of a young woman and a man found dead inside their home. At first, many people refused to believe it was Kayla. Friends called her phone over and over, hoping she would answer, but the silence was unbroken. Family members rushed to the scene, crying out her name, only to be met with the grim confirmation that she was gone. The case was immediately treated as a murder-suicide. Investigators began to piece together the final moments between Kayla and James. They found signs of struggle, evidence of an argument that had turned deadly. It appeared that James had attacked Kayla in a fit of rage before turning the weapon on himself. The discovery shocked even experienced detectives, who described the incident as deeply disturbing. Every room in the house carried traces of the chaos that had ended 2 young lives. Police searched phones, computers, and social media accounts to understand what had led to the tragedy. They uncovered messages that revealed months of tension, threats, and emotional pain. Friends had noticed some of the signs, but never imagined it would end like this. What they found painted a clear picture of control, jealousy, and fear that had slowly destroyed the relationship from within. The warning signs were there, but no one had seen how close it was to breaking. News stations covered the story for days, showing pictures of Kayla smiling in happier times. Reporters spoke about domestic violence and how easily it can go unnoticed. Online, people expressed shock and sadness, wondering how such a kind young woman had fallen into such a dangerous situation. Her story became another example of how quickly love can turn into something deadly when control replaces care. As the investigation continued, authorities confirmed that no one else was involved. The evidence showed that the tragedy had unfolded between Kayla and James alone. Their families were left to face the aftermath, struggling to understand what had gone so wrong. For Kayla's loved ones, the loss was impossible to put into words. They remembered her not for how she died, but for the light she once brought into their lives. By the time the case was closed, the message was clear. Hidden pain can grow quietly until it explodes into irreversible actions. Kayla's story became a warning for others to recognize danger before it's too late. The investigation ended, but the lessons it left behind continue to echo through the community, reminding everyone how silence can sometimes hide the loudest cries for help. The days following the tragedy were filled with disbelief. Friends, classmates, and co-workers gathered to share memories of Kayla, struggling to accept that she was truly gone. Her workplace placed flowers by her favorite spot, while her community held a candlelight vigil in her honor. People stood in silence, holding candles as her photos played on a screen. Every face in the crowd carried the same question: how could something so heartbreaking happen to someone so full of life? Kayla's family released a statement thanking everyone for their support. They spoke of her kindness, her laughter, and the joy she brought to everyone who met her. They asked people to remember her as a bright young woman who deserved so much more. The family's words reminded many that behind every news headline is a real person whose story ends too soon. Their message was simple: love should never turn into fear. In the weeks that followed, social media was flooded with tributes. Friends shared old photos and videos, recalling happy moments that showed Kayla's gentle nature. Some posted messages about checking on loved ones, hoping her story would inspire others to look for signs of danger before it was too late. Others expressed anger and frustration that no one had recognized a warning sign sooner. Her story sparked deep conversations about relationships, trust, and hidden pain. Community organizations began using Kayla's case as an example to raise awareness about domestic abuse. Local support groups held meetings, encouraging people to speak up if they ever felt unsafe. Posters were placed around the city with hotline numbers and messages about seeking help. Her death, while tragic, became a turning point that encouraged others to take warning signs more seriously. Awareness became her legacy. Schools and workplaces also joined in, organizing talks about safety, communication, and emotional well-being. Teachers told students that it's okay to ask for help, and managers reminded employees to reach out if they noticed someone struggling. The tragedy had opened everyone's eyes, showing how danger can hide behind normal smiles and polite conversations. Kayla's name became a symbol for change and a reminder to protect those who may be too afraid to speak. As time passed, the shock slowly turned into reflection. People began to realize how important it is to listen, to notice small details, and to act when something feels wrong. The community learned that silence can sometimes be deadly, and kindness alone isn't always enough to save someone in trouble. Her story left a mark that no one could erase. Even months later, flowers and candles still appeared outside the house where it happened. Each one represented love, grief, and remembrance. Though the investigation had ended, the pain remained, reminding everyone that behind every tragedy is a lesson waiting to be learned. Kayla's name continued to be spoken, not just in sadness, but as a call to never ignore the quiet signs of suffering again. Kayla's story left behind more than sorrow. It left a powerful message about awareness and action. Her quiet suffering showed how easily people can hide their pain behind smiles and polite words. Those who knew her replayed their last conversations, wondering what they had missed. The tragedy revealed that danger often grows slowly, wrapped in love and disguised as care. Her silence became a lesson for everyone to listen more closely to people around them. In the months after her death, many began to speak openly about their own experiences. People who had once stayed quiet found the courage to share their stories of control and fear. Kayla's case gave them the strength to recognize their own situations and reach out for help. Her name became part of a larger movement to protect those caught in toxic relationships before they spiral into tragedy. Police and support groups began working together to improve how they respond to domestic violence reports. Training programs were created to help officers recognize emotional and psychological signs, not just physical ones. The goal was to prevent another life from being lost to silence. Each change made in her memory became a small step toward protecting others from the same fate. Journalists continued to cover updates about the case and its broader impact on society. News articles focused less on the violence and more on prevention, highlighting organizations that could provide support. Kayla's family used their platform to educate others, appearing at community events to speak about early warning signs. Their efforts turned grief into purpose, ensuring that her death would not be forgotten. Across Australia, conversations about relationship safety began to grow louder. People became more willing to check in on friends and to believe them when they said something felt wrong. Schools introduced lessons about respect and healthy communication, teaching young people the difference between love and control. Kayla's story became a powerful example used in workshops and awareness campaigns across the country. Even as time moved forward, her name remained a reminder of vulnerability and strength. Her story showed that anyone, no matter how kind or confident, could become trapped in a dangerous situation. It also showed that change is possible when people start paying attention. The tragedy, though painful, gave rise to a collective promise to notice, to listen, and to act before it's too late. By the first anniversary of her passing, the community gathered once more to honor her memory. Balloons were released into the sky, carrying messages of hope and remembrance. Though Kayla was gone, her story continued to inspire others to speak out, seek help, and protect one another. What began as heartbreak ended as a call for awareness, a promise that her silence would never be repeated again. Before the tragedy unfolded, there were quiet signs that something was wrong. They were small, easily overlooked moments, changes in behavior, tone, and routine. Kayla began spending less time with friends, avoided family gatherings, and became more private. Her once open and cheerful personality slowly closed off. What seemed like stress or tiredness was actually fear, building quietly beneath the surface. Every unspoken word became a warning that no one fully recognized. Those close to her recalled moments that now seemed clear. Times when she seemed nervous while checking her phone or glancing around when certain topics came up. She sometimes canceled plans suddenly, saying she was too busy or not feeling well. Her laughter had grown shorter, her expressions forced. The once carefree woman was living under silent pressure, trying to keep peace in a situation that was slowly destroying her spirit. Online, subtle messages appeared on her social media pages, posts about loyalty, trust, and disappointment. They didn't look alarming at first glance, but now they felt like quiet cries for help. Each one reflected a piece of her inner struggle, written in a way that few could decode. She was speaking through her posts, hoping someone would notice without having to explain the pain directly. But like many others in similar situations, her words were mistaken for ordinary thoughts. In her workplace, some colleagues noticed she seemed distracted. Her usual confidence was replaced by hesitation. She began checking her phone frequently, as if she feared missing a message. Even small noises sometimes startled her. Still, she managed to do her job well, hiding her distress behind professionalism. Her quiet endurance was both brave and heartbreaking, a sign of someone trying to survive without drawing attention. Family members later remembered moments that stood out. Phone calls that ended quickly, conversations that felt guarded, visits that were postponed. They thought she was just busy with work or tired from stress. They didn't realize she was managing more than she could handle. The control and fear she experienced were carefully hidden behind politeness and routine. She never wanted to worry anyone, and that silence became her biggest shield and her deepest danger. The weeks before her death were filled with tension that only she could feel. Her actions became careful, her decisions cautious. She tried to keep peace while searching for a way out that seemed impossible. The world saw calmness, but behind that calm was exhaustion. She was trapped between wanting freedom and fearing what might happen if she tried to leave. Looking back, the warnings were everywhere, scattered across her days like faint traces of a storm before the rain. They were not loud or obvious, but they were real. Every unanswered message, every canceled plan, and every forced smile was part of a silent alarm. Those small signs, unnoticed at the time, now tell the story of a woman trying to survive until her strength finally ran out. After the tragedy, the house stood empty, a quiet reminder of what had taken place inside. Curtains stayed closed, the lights never came on, and the once lively home became a place of sorrow. People passing by would slow their steps, glancing at the windows as if expecting answers that would never come. The silence around the house carried more weight than words ever could. It was the sound of two lives lost too soon. The investigation had ended, but the emotional aftermath remained heavy. For Kayla's family, every day felt long and hollow. They replayed her final weeks over and over, trying to make sense of what they missed. Simple things like her favorite songs or the scent of her perfume became painful reminders. They had to learn how to live with memories instead of her presence. Her room stayed untouched for weeks, as though she might walk back in at any moment. Her friends also struggled to move forward. Group chats grew quiet, and social media posts about her stayed pinned at the top of their pages. Birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays carried a sadness they couldn't shake. They spoke about her softly, sharing stories that made them laugh before falling silent again. Her absence created an empty space that could not be filled by anyone else. The community began to change slowly after her passing. The shock had turned into awareness, and awareness had turned into caution. People started paying more attention to those around them, especially when someone seemed withdrawn. Teachers, co-workers, and neighbors began asking simple questions and checking in more often. Kayla's story had left a lasting mark that encouraged people to see beyond appearances. Even local leaders began speaking about relationship awareness and early warning signs. Workshops were organized to educate families about control, manipulation, and fear. The tragedy had pushed people to talk about subjects they once avoided. Every new discussion felt like a small step toward preventing another loss. Her story became not just a warning, but a reason for change. For months, the media continued to mention her name. Articles spoke about how her case had influenced new policies and encouraged support services to expand. Her family, though still grieving, took strength in knowing her story was saving others. They turned their pain into purpose, using her memory to protect others from falling into similar danger. Though the world kept moving, the silence that followed her loss never truly faded. The memory of what happened remained etched in the minds of everyone who knew her. Each time someone shared her story, it reminded others that danger can live quietly behind closed doors. The stillness around that home became a lasting echo, a reminder that some silences speak louder than any voice ever could. As months passed, Kayla's story continued to ripple through her community and beyond. People who had never met her felt a deep connection to the message her life left behind. She became a symbol of awareness and change, a reminder that danger can hide beneath love and silence can mask pain. Her memory pushed others to speak out, share their experiences, and seek help before it was too late. Her story had become larger than one event. It had become a voice for the voiceless. Her family began organizing events in her honor, creating foundations to support people in unsafe relationships. They worked with local organizations to provide education and guidance for those who might be experiencing fear or control. Each program carried her name and message, ensuring her memory brought light where darkness once ruled. What had started as heartbreak slowly transformed into a mission of protection and understanding. Schools and universities began including her story in discussions about emotional health and relationship safety. Teachers spoke gently about the importance of recognizing when something feels wrong and trusting one's instincts. Students listened, learning that love should never hurt, and control is not the same as care. Her name became part of lessons that shaped a new generation's understanding of respect and empathy. Artists and writers also found inspiration in her story. Murals were painted in her memory. Songs were written about strength and freedom, and essays were shared about the dangers of silence. Each creation carried a message that reflected the pain of her loss, but also the hope for a safer future. Through art, her life continued to speak, softly but powerfully, to anyone willing to listen. Local authorities noticed the changes too. Reports of domestic issues began to rise, not because violence had increased, but because more people were reaching out for help. Kayla's case had opened eyes, proving that silence could be broken when the right stories were told. Every call, every message, and every step towards safety became part of the legacy she unintentionally left behind. For her family, healing came slowly. The pain never disappeared, but found purpose. They often said that while they couldn't bring her back, they could make sure no one else suffered the same fate. Each speech, interview, and campaign carried their love for her, a love that had turned into a shield for others. Their strength showed how even in tragedy, something meaningful can still grow. Years later, people still remembered her name, not as a victim, but as a teacher whose story warned others to see the unseen and speak the unspoken. Kayla's legacy lived on in the lives she helped protect. Though her voice had been silenced, her message never faded. Through remembrance, education, and awareness, her story continued to save lives. Proof that even in silence, she was still being heard. The courtroom was packed that morning. Every seat was filled, and the air felt heavy with expectation. Cameras flashed outside as reporters shouted questions, but inside, silence ruled. The judge entered, and the soft sound of his gavel brought everyone to attention. Kayla's family sat in the front row, clutching tissues, their eyes fixed on the person who took her away. The defendants stood motionless, avoiding their gaze, knowing that this day would seal their fate. The prosecutor's voice was calm but firm as he replayed the timeline of Kayla's last moments. Photos, videos, and phone records were presented, each piece painting a picture of betrayal and cruelty. Kayla's friends watched in disbelief, remembering how quickly things had spiraled out of control. The defense tried to shift blame, but the evidence spoke louder than any argument. Every word echoed to the room, like a reminder of what could never be undone. When the jury returned, their faces told the story before the foreman spoke. The word guilty filled the courtroom and brought gasps from the crowd. Kayla's mother broke down, her sobs echoing as the judge announced the sentence. Life imprisonment without parole. The courtroom was silent once more, except for the quiet cries of relief and pain blending together. Justice had been served, but the emptiness remained. Outside, the media swarmed to capture reactions. Kayla's father stood at the courthouse steps and spoke softly about forgiveness and the need for change. He said his daughter's life would not be forgotten and that her story would serve as a warning to others. Behind him, her friends held a banner with her picture, surrounded by flowers and candles. The sun was bright that day, but the mood was heavy, like the world had lost something pure. That night, a vigil was held at the park, where Kayla used to walk her dog. Dozens of people came with candles, sharing stories of her kindness and laughter. Her favorite song played quietly in the background. The glow of candlelight reflected on tear-streaked faces as everyone whispered her name. It was a moment of peace after months of pain, a promise to remember her not for how she died, but for how she lived. As the candles flickered out, the crowd slowly dispersed, leaving the park empty again. Only a single candle remained lit beside her photo, burning steadily against the wind. It was a small symbol of love that refused to fade. Kayla Hodgson's story had ended, but her memory would continue to live in every heart that had known her. In the stillness of the night, the city seemed to breathe again. Justice had spoken, but healing would take time. The world moved forward, carrying the weight of one young woman's story, a story that changed everything. Here at Unseen Crime Dossiers, we're driven by a mission to uncover hidden realities, honor forgotten voices, and keep their memories alive. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, there's more coming that will challenge you even deeper. Make sure to hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a case. We're dropping new episodes regularly, and trust us, what's ahead is even more chilling. Before you go, we want to hear from you. What moment hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Your perspective matters, and your voice helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth, because every life deserves to be heard. Thanks you all for watching.